Welcome to Monologues by Hassie, where I'm going to be dropping unsolicited brain dumps from the depths of my grey matter. I'll talk about life, money, society, and self-development, plus whatever else lies up there, whilst hopefully not getting cancelled in the process. In March 2021, I made an investment which absolutely trashed the S&P 500. So here are the stats. I invested $4,000. In 1.5 years, I made $36,000 off that $4,000. And that represented a 900% return on investment. Now, had I invested that money in the S&P 500 10 years ago, back in 2012, here's what I would have had. I would have had a total return on investment of 177%. I would have earned $7,000 approximately. And as I mentioned, it would have taken me 10 years. So basically what I ended up doing is I made 5 times the money, 15 times faster than if I had invested in the S&P 500. Now, you're probably wondering, what on earth did I invest in? And here's where you're going to realize that the entire title to this podcast and the last 1 minute of me talking has been entirely clickbait. What I invested in was my education. That $4,000 investment was in a course at what's a community college here in Australia, also known as TAFE. And I went to night school for a year, and I learnt about databases, right? I was doing a diploma in database design and development. And what this did was it allowed me to transition from being a public servant to becoming a data analyst / data engineer in a startup. And in doing so, I actually increased my income by $40,000 per year, an absolutely phenomenal jump. And what I really want to push, and this point has actually been made by somebody I recommend that everyone out here should go and listen to. Well, there's 2 people actually. The first is Alex Hormozi and the second is his wife, Layla Hormozi. And these guys, they had over $100 million in revenue across a couple of businesses. And what Alex Hormozi says is that when he was starting off, and not starting the business, mind you, when he was still working a job, when he was working for somebody else, he spent a lot of money on courses, coaching, basically trying to learn whatever he could. If he saw there were skills he didn't have, he tried to go and learn them, right? So he'd pay courses, pay mentors, whatever. He did whatever he needed to do within reason to learn new skills. And he makes a very valid point that all that money that he spent learning things, if he had invested that into the S&P 500, he would not have $100 million in recurring revenue every year. Now, my example isn't as extreme as his, right? He's a multimillionaire. I'm very far from that. But I think it goes to show the point that I could have done the same. Back in 2021, I could have said, let me just put my money in the S&P 500. And to date, I probably would have lost money because markets have come down, but it might have taken me 10 years to only get 177% return on my investment over a 10-year period, versus what I actually achieved, which was 900% ROI over 1.5 years. And the incredible thing about that is, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be investing money. If you're listening to this, I'm not telling you not to invest money, because learning how to invest is incredibly important. We see so many people around us, high-paid doctors, high-paid lawyers, who have these great high-value skills, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. They don't know what they're doing financially, and if they're not wise enough to acknowledge that and hire a financial advisor who's doing good things for them, well, just because they make high income, they're not really going anywhere. So learning how to invest in financial markets and having some understanding of financial instruments, like an index, like the S&P 500, and how to invest in that, it's very valid. That said, on top of doing that, you should be investing your money into developing your skills. Because even if you stay in the realm of an employee, which I currently am, I went from one type of employee to a much more valuable type of employee. It cost me $4,000 in addition, obviously, to time and petrol and whatever I spent getting to night school. But I hope my point is very clear. One of the greatest investments that we can make in ourselves is learning. It's upskilling. So don't be afraid if there's a course out there. In fact, I've been investing in my personal development ever since. So every year, in addition to everything that I already spend on learning, right, I pay for a lot of platforms to help me get better at coding. So I invest a lot of money in that. But what I actually spend more money on is courses which kind of stretch my skill set out, right? Which complements to my existing skill set, or maybe they're skills which I think I'm going to need in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years. Last year, like one of the most valuable courses I did was I paid $1,250 to do a public speaking bootcamp, which was absolutely fantastic. This year, I'm doing a course on contract law for non-lawyers. I'm not a lawyer, but I realized that, the whole world, as I go through every stage in my life, I will be dealing with contracts, right? As an employee, the first thing, once you pass your interview, the first thing you're given is you are given an employment contract, right? When you run a business, you'll be entering into contracts with your clients, right? When you get married, you're also entering into a contract. It's very important to understand contract law. So I've made that that's my professional development for this year, in addition to everything else I'm doing. Every year right now, I'm probably spending easily $2,000 to $3,000 per year, which I can do on my income. And this is not going to be, but by all means, depending on where you are in the world, adjust this to, I guess, your local market, because not everything is going to cost the same. But I anticipate that as my income goes up, I will actually end up spending more and more in training. And don't get me wrong, I still invest. I have a stock portfolio, which I love adding more units to. But I'm not going to concentrate all my money there because I've made a much bigger impact in my financial gain by actually investing in myself and investing in my skill set. And that increase in money has allowed me then to put more money back into the S&P 500, right? Those boring, passive, safe funds. So don't forget to invest in yourself. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.